Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining the To Hull and Back podcast, sponsored by 6 Yards Out and Pearson's Bar in Hull. Tonight, we have a very exciting interview hosted by me, Nathaniel, and co-host Tom. We've got former footballer and current presenter of Sky Sports coverage of the Championship and other leagues, perhaps, David Prutton. So thank you very much for joining us. How are you, David?
I'm really well. Gents, thank you very much for getting me on. It's a pleasure. I've heard a lot about it. I've seen a lot of your stuff. And in direct contrast to what the last 10 minutes have been, I hope the next however long we're going to chat is extremely professional and very straightforward.
Yes, the last 10 minutes is me been trying to download the thumbnail. So that's all sorted. Everything looks great. So, thank you very much for joining us. And another mistake I made, might as well admit to all of it. I said that I've got on my notes that you've played almost 50 games. So a really fantastic career.
It might have been all relative. It might have been almost 50 half-decent games in almost 400. That might be something that might have been your train of thought, Nathaniel, and I wouldn't totally understand, mate.
Very modest of you.
Sure, Nathaniel's watched plenty of Prutton's games.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, at some point, Alex is probably going to come up and comment saying I wasn't born when you were playing. He likes to say that.
Well, come on then. How old are you, Nathaniel, then?
I am 20 years young.
Third year of university. And Tom, how old are you?
I'm 23. I finished uni 2020. So
fantastic. Yeah. Right. Out in the big wide world, how are we finding it almost?
Well, I work for this company, sports trading company, or sports broker. So I write like the content for them. So
fantastic.
we're like, so do you know Football Index?
Yes, I do.
It's similar to that, but it's trading with football clubs, not players, because if you do it with players, it was like quite volatile. Whereas the clubs, so you invest in a club, and obviously if they win, the share value goes up, and then obviously lose, it goes down. So I write obviously stuff on that. So,
was that straight out of uni then?
No, it took me a year and a half to get this job. So yeah,
sounds like good fun though.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah,
a year and a half of grind then, Tom.
Pardon?
On the grind for a year and a half to get the job.
Yeah.
That was a different thing entirely.
I know. I was thinking, what's he on about there?
You get jobs on there nowadays, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Shall we move swiftly on to football?
Go on.
Okay, so you've played for many clubs, including Nottingham Forest, in the Premier League for Southampton, Leeds United. We don't really like them on this podcast.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah, Swindon and Sheffield Wednesday. I'm not really sure we like them either. Do we, Tom?
Okay.
Not hugely, but
I really hate Swindon. Yeah.
Oh yeah, especially Swindon.
Got a huge hatred of clubs from Wiltshire, being out in the East Riding.
Yeah. So and you were playing as a midfielder for those amazing 50 games you had. Just talk us through it. What was the journey for David Prutton as a player, and what were the highs and lows?
Well, I was, as we all are, avid fans of football from a very young age. Grew up not too far from Boothby Park, just off Springbank West. Played with my mates, got into football, kind of properly Sunday league type stuff with Hesler Rangers, which I'm sure if you are in the Hull area, then you'll know exactly where Hesler Rangers is and what Hesler Rangers are. And then played for Humberside when it was Humberside. That's before your time, gents. I think I would be right in thinking. Kind of progressed through there. Went to Heimers College in town, which is obviously a rugby playing school, which probably might feed into a question latterly when you ask me about particular sections of Hull City fans not liking me. That would be one reason, to be fair, if you've been to Heimers College. And then from there, I think I got spotted playing for Humberside to go and trial for Nottingham Forest. And I'd been at the Centre of Excellence at Hull City. So when it was Boothby Park, the big dusty gym off the back, which leaked and was in very much disrepair. We used to train there for a little bit and was at the Centre of Excellence for probably about a year, 2 years. Nothing really came of that. Forest got in touch, went to go and play and train with Forest. John Hawley was a player that, or former player, of course, that was taking us for training. And we'd go twice a week backwards and forwards between Hull and Newark, where they played and trained. And then on a Saturday morning, go and play for the youth team. And then when I left school at 16 after my GCSEs, went into football full time on a scholarship, which they were back then. I don't think it's quite the same now. And fortuitously and with some hard work, managed to make my debut at 18, and then it kind of progressed from there. Really, it was a very ambitious, very motivated, very energising place to play with Paul Hart in charge of the youth team. He could crack the whip, which I think when you are young men or young boys together, you need that discipline. And then in 2003, I got the chance to go to Southampton, who were then in the Premier League, which was fantastic. I had 4 years there, 2 very good ones, 2 not so good ones. Ending up in me coming out and going to that mob down the M62, Leeds, which was, sorry to say, fantastic fun. I mean, they were in League One at the time. I mean, and as a kind of parallel story, it was, I remember texting with Ian Ashby. So when Hull City got to the Premier League with that wonderful Dean Windass volley, we were obviously in the same playoff weekend playing Donny. And whereas Hull City turned up and got the job done, we turned up and didn't get the job done. We were terrible, tail between our legs, back down to Ellen Road, trying again the next season. Didn't quite come off. I then progressed to the likes of Colchester. Colchester after that was Swindon, obviously. Jonathan, which you, Nathaniel, which you hate. Don't know where I've got Jonathan from. And then I had a chance to go and play at Sheffield Wednesday, which again was wonderful. Little loan spell at Scunthorpe, which again, I mean, if you mention Scunthorpe in a Hull City sense, just because it's across the water, is there any form of debate with that? I mean, I can't think for a second that it would have ever been a rival of any real note, unless I'm doing a huge disservice to that part of Lincolnshire.
It's similar with Grimsby as well. People,
yes,
there's that. It's because Hull start out in the sticks, is we don't really have a direct rival. So
we don't know.
Since there's teams around the area, I think sometimes it's like if they were in our division, then we'd look forward to that game more than other games because it's that close. Whereas usually in recent seasons, our closest game has been Leeds United. So you know,
Leeds are the rival at the moment. But if we were actually in the same league as Scunthorpe or Grimsby, we'd be rivals. But we never are.
And having worked on those games, which have been entertaining games, I mean, probably not from the Hull City persuasion. There was one which was quite a chastening defeat, wasn't it? But I think, given the geographical element, I think you're absolutely right, Tom, as well. Given where Hull is, there is sometimes it feels like a semblance of looking around for who is that rival, where are they, and what can we hang our particular hat on. But so coming off the back of that, just to very, very, very quickly bookend what I was saying there, ended up on loan at Coventry, Coventry were then playing at Northampton, which again was a bit of an experience in its own right. And then meander to a close at 32. And then at 32, you're still a relatively young man, and then you've got to pull your finger out and do something else, which is what I've been doing for about 8 or 9 seasons now, which has been great fun.
Yeah, so going back to your early career, I want to ask how the opportunity came about to sort of get into the Nottingham Forest setup. Like, how does the scouting work? And because you see a lot of players sort of slip through the net and not get given the opportunity.
Right.
You can get like trials on the day the player might not turn up and do the best. And then was it a bit of luck? Was it a bit of obviously there was a lot of hard work involved?
It's all that, Tom. To be honest, mate, it's all that. It's opportunity. It's coincidence. It's mine was a bit. It sounds like a bit of an old-fashioned story, doesn't it? A scout comes wandering up to you when you're old man after a game and says, "What have you like? Where have you played? Who do you play with? Are you affiliated to a club?"
Yeah,
and because there'd been a passing kind of relationship with Hull City, which like I said was all kind of schoolboy trials based and training based, and that was all done in that dusty old gym. And this a scout called Mel Hackett, lovely fella, spoke to me and my dad and I, and then went down and started training with him. Well, it wasn't necessarily a trial from what I can remember, but it was training with him, which would have been about 14, which obviously it's different now. I mean, my lad's 11, just turned 11, and you get kids signed up to academies at 8, 9 years old. And then, so I started playing. They had an under 17s and under 19s. and then I started playing for the under-17s on a Sunday. On a Saturday morning, which then stopped me playing Sunday league football and also the rugby that I was playing at school as well. And then you get to that kind of last year, so in that GCSE year, so you're getting towards, so you're like 15, 16.
Scholarship.
Obviously, you come to leave school. Yeah. And then they either say, yes, we want to sign you, or no. So I signed a YTS till I was 17. And the good thing was, I left school at 16. I was 17 in the September. So I joined there in July, had July, August, got into September, turned pro, and had a 3-year pro contract. Now, I have no idea right now how prevalent they are. The last few years that I was actually playing, you'd hear young lads getting 6 months to a year contract. And in my head, I'm thinking, my God, at that age, what can you prove in 6 months? What can you prove in a year if you don't get the opportunity? And I'd turned pro and was playing for it would have been the under-19s at the time, which was it was a really good team. I mean, we had Andy Dawson was in there, Kevin Dawson was in there. Obviously, Michael was coming up hot on the heels of those two. It was a wonderful footballer. Andy Reid, Jermaine Jennings, so Marlon Harewood was in it as well. So many talented players that went on to have good careers in football. So we had a great platform. And then by the time I turned 18 in that September the following season, I played a couple of reserve games, one that the manager at the time, David Platt, was watching and seemed to be quite impressed. And then there was an injury kind of crisis. There was a kid who lived in the digs in the room next door, because we lived in a big house next to the City Ground in Nottingham. So, and he was in the room next to me, lovely Irish fella, Kevin Doyle, not the Kevin Doyle that went on to go play for Wolves, but another Kevin Doyle. He played at Sheffield Wednesday in a reserve team game, double compound fracture of his leg, snapped his leg in half. This particularly unpleasant player. He was probably better than me on the ball. He probably wasn't as fit as me, but he was a very, very good footballer, And by process of elimination, because of this kind of injury crisis or debate, he'd have been the next off the rank to go and play in this League Cup game against Bristol City. He was obviously out, never really came back, unfortunately for Kev. Like I said, a real slice of deep, deep misfortune. But as is football, because it's a team game, that door shuts for somebody else. It opens for someone else. Yeah. You played in that reserve game. I remember you weren't crap. Let's give him a blast. Get chucked in. Then after that, you left to your own. It's down to what you can do on that particular day. But it's a process of sliding doors, I think. And I'm not trying to say that it all felt very, very straightforward, because I'm trying to obviously remember something that's 25 years in the past now. But it's that sense of opportunity. And if you're ready for opportunity, if you're prepared, then you're going to step through the doors that are open. But also the support of a loving family, the support of loving coaches and other teammates that pushed you on and spurred you on. Because as much as it was an ambitious, cutthroat place that we played football in at Forest, every single one of those players were friends and teammates, and we spurred each other on. It was such a wonderfully kind of fertile hotbed of ambition that drove each and every player on.
Yeah, that sounds good. Like, I think that's what you need as a young player coming through. You need the experienced players around you to sort of give you that opportunity and give you the confidence. I say, like, I saw there's a similar story with Marcus Rashford when he first made his debut for Man United. I think it was Will Keane, another youth player, was injured. They was meant to be on the bench, and obviously Rashford got his chance and took it. So, like, we may not have seen Marcus Rashford today if he didn't get that chance at that time. I think Will Keane at that time was scoring more goals than him in the youth setup, and then he had a serious injury, and then obviously Rashford, obviously we know what sort of player he is today. Yeah, but that's sometimes it's a slice of bad fortune for that player, but obviously the player coming through, you've got to take a chance, and obviously that's what you do.
And the other part about it is, Tom, there's a certain element of compartmentalising there, because you are talking about teammates and mates, and I knew Kev really well. Like I said, literally, my door opened where his door opened, and we were next door to each other in these digs where there's 20 of the lads all trying to make it in football. And I don't remember, unless I'm misremembering any form of malice, that anything other than people buzzing for you. You know what I mean? Like, someone's got in, and whoever was before me, someone's got in, and it opens the door. It makes you really think and appreciate the fact that, especially Forest at that time, and it's got a history of being able to produce young players. It was a place that if you were good enough and the opportunity was there, they would play you as young players. Like I said, it could be completely different now. The inner machinations of what a football club is. I don't know, the wild spectrum of what you look at, what is a well-run football club and what it looks like someone who just comes in and buys play. The experience I had.
Is it cutting off a bit for you?
Oh, it is cutting off for me. Yeah, I was wondering whether that was me or not. But hopefully we can get David back very soon. But that's very interesting what you're saying about how you get into football. And I mean, I was just going to ask in a second about, I can link it to, as is mentioned before, how some Hull City fans don't seem to like him very much. But if there was ever a chance for him to get into and play for Hull City from an early age coming up in the area, but seems like, you can't really be picky with what team you're going to start to play from at that age. To get an opportunity to be scouted is just, a huge honour from whoever. Yeah, hopefully we can get him back very soon. But been a very good interview so far.
Have we got anyone in that's how many we've got watching?
I don't know, but if there is anyone else watching live, definitely put your questions in, because we'd love to have a few more to ask David from the loyal listeners we do have. What else? I mean, I'm looking forward to hearing about him working with Neil Warnock on his podcast later.
Yeah.
If he's going to come back on. Die for 3 points. Here he is.
There he is.
Hopefully we get back soon.
Who's in tonight?
Huh? Pardon?
Is this North Yorkshire internet, West Yorkshire internet, or East Yorkshire internet? Take your pick.
I think it's West Yorkshire.
I don't know. Yeah. I think my Wi-Fi has been fine for once, but you were just saying how difficult it is to get into any academy. Some fans might be wondering if you were raised in Hull, why you didn't play for them, but it just seems you can't really be picky choosing a team to start with. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I never got properly asked. There was, and I'm not saying in the sense of like it's that rolling out the red carpet asked at all. It's just literally I wasn't deemed good enough at the time to go and play for them, so I wasn't tapped up or offered the opportunity. So when something a bit more concrete came into playing for Forest, that's exactly why that happened. I don't know. I mean, the Hull City that I watched as a kid, very briefly, about a season, was an old Division 3 team in a stadium which obviously had a lot of history. Had a wonderful football pitch. Boothby Park's surface was fantastic.
My dad said it was one of the best pitches in the country when.
It was amazing, absolutely amazing. It was like a bowling green, and watched many a game there, which I thoroughly enjoyed. But yeah, just never had the opportunity, and that I don't know whether we'll go on to it, but that was the case throughout all of my career. There was an occasion which had been brought up via and I don't know whether I'm again misremembering this or misread it, about Phil Brown mentioning the fact that I'd had a chance to join, which was rubbish. If I'd have had a chance to join Hull City at the time that they were talking about, I'd have crawled up from where I was in Southampton across broken glass, metaphorically.
Was that the season before we got promoted to the Premier League? Was that?
I think it would have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd had a bit of a dodgy time at Southampton. I'd managed to go bonkers at a ref and attract attention to myself, which isn't great when you're a footballer. But that sense of what it could have been, I very definitely would have been completely up for joining and completely up for being part of what they were doing because it was such a. Is that me back now? Because it was such. There
we go. I was wondering where it was.
That's good. I'm better in the dark for most things, and it was just such a forward-thinking, progressive place, City at the time, completely. Like I said, and knowing Ian Ashby a little bit, like I did a long time ago, it would have been a great. And that journey that a lot of them went on from League Two all the way to the Premier League has established those players as proper legendary Hull City players. You know what I mean? You can go back in the sands of time and see players that very much stick out. So the era that I was watching was very much kind of Andy Payton, Peter Swamp, Ian Hesford, people like that. But that team that managed to drag them from the brink of extinction all the way up into the Premier League are absolutely cast in stone, aren't
they? Yeah, I think if you did join City, I reckon it'd been a similar story to like Nick Barmby. Like he dropped down a couple of divisions. He was playing for Leeds at the time, who obviously getting relegated, and then he obviously dropped down to League One. And then obviously he was obviously seen as a legend at City. So it's.
I think just in the interest of total self-awareness, I understand that Nick Barmby was a fundamentally better player than I ever was. just a little bit different. But I you're right, Tom. I totally get it. But then, I mean, I'm a bit of a what's the word? I don't know whether fatalist is the right word, but I always think that, you know what I mean, almost those kind of Forrest Gump moments when you sat in the background just trying to not get in the way, mess things up. I've joined Southampton. I played one game in the FA Cup for Forest against West Ham. I was captain down at Upton Park. I then got transferred. So I was cup side. And then Southampton subsequently get to the 2003 FA Cup final. So I stood there pitch side at the Millennium Stadium, like, and then Steve Wigley, one of the coaches, said, "Oh, I feel for you." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "Well, you know what I mean, playing here." My cynical take on it, and that's probably hopefully a sense of what an upbringing in Hull gives you, that kind of black sense of humour, was like, Christ, if I'd have been playing, we would have got nowhere near this final. we'd have been knocked out of Millwall in like round 4, or you know what I mean, something like that. So
sort of degrading yourself.
Exactly, that
degrading yourself for the humour. Yeah. So you mentioned about Southampton. Like, what was your time like there? Like, in contrast to Forest. So obviously you moved on. Forest obviously was relegated, weren't they, when you was there? And then you moved on to Southampton.
No, Forest. I tell you what, Forest managed to hit rock bottom a little bit later on. I was there when we were in League One, which was crap.
Yeah.
But I left in January. That summer they got so like May time they got to the playoff semi-final. So they played Sheffield United. But I left in the January because the chance to go and play in the Premier League was something that I'd always dreamt of, and it all happened very quickly. And then, so I had two. In my kind of memory, were decent years there, playing in the Premier League, playing at these places that you'd only watched on TV, against these players that were like superhuman. That Arsenal team with Henry and Vieira and people like that, you just kind of look back and go,
how good were they then? Like, playing against them, was it just unreal?
Just think, you know, when you come across football teams, and you'd have both played in football teams and both played against teams, that you get a big lad who's a bit slow, you get a smaller fellow who's a bit more skillful, you get, I don't know, a stocky lad who's quite strong but not so good on the ball. That lot were all over 6 foot, very good on the ball, very quick, very strong, and very fit. So you're kind of going, well, I can't outrun them. I'm not tougher than them, because you get tackled by Patrick Vieira, your skeleton shakes. You kind of go, oh Christ, that's really painful. So you're kind of going, well, what do you do? And then you find yourself just hanging on for dear life. If I'm brutally honest, what we had as a team, which is what Gordon Strachan put into us, was as a team we could collectively challenge people. And when we were on it as a team, we found it tough.
Yeah.
But then Gordon subsequently moved on. I think he promised his wife, because him and his wife, it's like the perfect kind of golden coupling of decades, and love each other very much. And they were a wonderful example of matrimony. And I think he promised her a bit of time away, and then he kind of announced it, and I was like, oh, Christ. Yes, I'm playing the Premier League, but I'd come to play for you because I think you're fantastic and you're going to keep us on the straight and narrow and you're going to get this much out of me. And then he moved on. And then it kind of meandered a little bit. I think we had 4 different managers in a calendar year, which, if you're talking about this back in 2004...
That's more than Watford, I think. That's more than Watford.
Exactly. But nowadays, it doesn't sound as bad. You kind of, well, it's like
back then, that must have been quite shocking.
You're right, Nathaniel. And it was bizarre, but then you end up kind of, am I in, am I out? Does he like me? Does he not like me? Are we going to go here? And it's just a bit disconcerting. And I mean, I completely didn't help myself by putting myself in a position to get suspended for a long time. and with it, the kind of coverage that gets. And there's a perception that if you have that type of player, then you're going to be a problem. And then injuries is the first real time that I'd really encountered injuries. So I broke a metatarsal only because Beckham and Rooney had done it. Knackered ankle ligaments because I got smashed by who was it? Paddy McCarthy, I think, at Leicester. So spent a good 6 to 8 months trying to sort those two separate injuries out. Then had surgery on said ankle after rehabbing it for 3 months. So then probably missed collectively about a year's worth of football. And then by the time you come back to it, you're 2 managers down the line and you kind of think, well, I'm a bit surplus to requirements here. Then meander off back up north to where Leeds United had completely bottomed out with no money, with no players, with no perceived future, and Dennis Wise in charge. What could possibly go wrong, eh?
What was it like going obviously from Southampton to Leeds? Like, what was the change in environment like? Obviously, you've gone from Southampton in the Premier League to Leeds.
I was glad to get back up north, I'll be honest. I was glad to get back. But it was because a year before I'd been for a medical at Leeds, and it took 3 days. So the fellow that picked me up was I can't remember his second name, which he was the physio, Dave Hancock, and he picked me up in like one of the biggest cars I've ever seen. And so you're kind of thinking, this is the physio, is it? And without trying to sound condescending, but it's like, well, if the physio's driving this, what's the number 9 driving, or what's the chairman driving?
Yeah.
Whisked me off for this med. And Dave Hancock, subsequently, I think he set up Virgin Active rehab centres. He then went to work for the New York Knicks. The last thing I read was he was U2's touring physio.
He gets around the block.
Exactly. And he obviously works with Muppets like me. So done this kind of 3-day physio, which by the end of it was, this section of you is fit, your ankle's knackered, you need surgery on it. So then went back to Southampton, had surgery on it, rehabbed it. By that time, Leeds had dropped out of the Championship. Dennis Wise said something along the lines of, well, if you're not going to come now, you're never going to come and play for me. Rang him 3 months later, tail between my legs. Also, they had their collective tails between the legs because it was when they were in administration, got docked 15 points, no players. And there was a great kind of ragtag bunch of us that rocked up there and kind of cracked on and almost got back into the Championship at the first bite of the cherry because we got to the player final. As I said, as City beat Bristol City with that wonderful volley, we were there in the same weekend, stinking the place up, unfortunately. And then back to square one the following year, still in League One.
What was it like? Did you start the playoff final? Did you start in midfield?
I did. Yeah. No, I did. It was... it's funny because I've worked there since. I remember being at the Hull City Chef Wednesday one.
Yeah.
And the thing is, so I'd been there obviously with the experience of being at Wednesday and knowing how long they've been outside of the Premier League. Hull City just sauntered up, scored, then sauntered back up the M1 and back up on the trains. Just like, yeah, that's how you do it. Bye. Deal with pressure, deal with all that type of stuff. Rock up, rock out, job done. We went there. We had at least half the stadium, if not more. And we just didn't turn up. Like I said, I work there now. When I look at the pitch, it just makes me feel tired because we were half an hour into the game. You're thinking, Christ, we're getting battered here by Doncaster. Doncaster were a good team, by the way. That incarnation of what Doncaster was. Great passing team. Kept the ball off us for fun. Had a good couple of chances early on. Ended up coming away winning the game. But the occasion, it's I mean, this isn't an opinion that will shock you at all. Playing at Wembley is absolutely amazing. The whole thing.
Was that your first time?
The crowd.
Obviously,
yeah.
Final,
that's the first time I played. I'm trying to think if I've been there to watch. Yeah, I went to the old Wembley with the under-21s when Germany beat England. Remember, Dietmar Hamann scored the free kick, which never went about that far off the ground, skidded in. It was chucking it down. And then I think Kevin Keegan resigned that night. And then Howard Wilkinson, who was our boss, left us to go and sort them out. And we got taken by someone else. But that was the first time I'd been back to play in it, and the one and only time I played in it, and it was it was a stunning place to play football. It's not a great place to lose because you just end up sat on the pitch thinking there's about 50,000 people staring at us thinking losers, which is exactly what was the case, which was really unfortunate because I mean it would have made that season memorable for a myriad of reasons. In the grand scheme of what Leeds United is, that team will not go down in history or of any note. But if we'd have climbed back into the Championship with minus 15 points, it'd have been the stuff of legend. But unfortunately, it wasn't to be.
Yeah, must have been a great experience though, just obviously playing on at Wembley and stuff like that. And
that's right. The pitch. You know, it's quite obviously a set of measurements that a football pitch is created within, but it just seems massive. And I think I played right midfield, which I was never quick. I was quite conscientious, but I was never quick. And it just felt bigger. You're like when you've got to go and close the fullback down, you think, Christ, he's about 50 yards away. I'm not going to get anywhere near him. And then you go running out and he's gone past you, go running back.
I remember when Hull City lost the FA Cup final there, and it was just it was so like disheartening seeing the players on the pitch out on the feet. Because obviously it was a 120-minute game, and I remember seeing Jake Livermore just crying, and it was just it's sad there.
Which, but on the flip side, it's good that you're sat watching people that inherently care about what the game is, because there's a very lazy stereotype, and I think hopefully it's kind of a bit passé now that footballers don't care, and there is an element of footballers that you'll come across that you just think Jesus, but they've all got professional pride, and if they've got a link to the club, like I said, that generation of City players that came through, then they'll live, breathe, and die with every moment that you fans in the stadium will. That's an absolute given.
Yeah, but you've said about some of the more disappointing times trying to get promoted, but I believe you were promoted with Sheffield Wednesday, and was it 2012 from League One to the Championship? So. Yeah, what was that experience like? I'm sorry.
It's all right. It was great. We played Wickham on the final day of the season. During that year, we'd played Sheffield United in the Sheffield Derby. We'd beaten them, and that was a real turning point because they were battling for second with us. And then there was a lot of other kind of exterior stuff going on with United at the time as well. And then we got to that final game against Wickham, and it was just literally a case of beating them, and it was full. So as you come out of the tunnel at Hillsborough, you've got Leppings Lane to your left, you've got the Cop to your right, you've got a little portion in the top left-hand corner, which you'll probably know as away fans, is where if you're not behind the goal in Leppings Lane, you are in the little triangle bit at the top, which is where the Wickham fans were. And there must have been, Christ, I don't know how many Hillsborough holds. It'll be late 30s. And it was full. And we just had to get through the game and win the game. I remember coming on, I think I came on very late in that game. Not saying for 1 second that helped us shepherd us towards 90 minutes and subsequent promotion, but it was great. It was just a wonderful, wonderful thing to be a part of, because I got relegated with Southampton, which was obviously crap, and Swindon, which was that again. So to be part of something as wonderful as a promotion was just great. And I played a lot the first half of the season, not so much latterly. But it's all part of it, isn't it? You go up as a squad, you get relegated as a squad, you succeed as a squad, you fail as a squad, and that's exactly what we did. Really good bunch of lads, nice bunch of lads. Big football club as well. I don't need to tell anyone that lives and works and is from Yorkshire just what it was. If you watch Goals on Sunday back in the day, that sliding scale of Leeds, the two Sheffield clubs, Hull City, across the water, Lincoln, Scunny, Grimsby. Chuck Doncaster in there as well. It's always been in York City. It's always been a hotbed of big football clubs, and Sheffield Wednesday very much fit that remit. It was a wonderful day. It was a pretty heavy couple of nights afterwards as well, which was good. It was good fun.
So you've mentioned a lot about your playing career now, but how did you become a presenter? Because you're now the presenter for the whole championship with Sky Sports.
I am. I'd done a bit of guesting towards the end of when I was injured, and that seemed to go down okay. So when I'd finished playing, I was on loan at Coventry. I was meant to be signing there. That never materialised. And after that, you've got to pull your finger out when you've got dependents and grown-up stuff to look after. So I had the chance to go and do a few games with Sky. and Sky Sports part of it is akin to what a football club is like, where you get chucked in and it's sink or swim, with a lot of help, I must add. So I've done guesting type stuff. I've done some commentary. Excuse me, and then done that for that seemed to work for a couple of years. That opens doors for other broadcasting opportunities. There's a company called Premier League Productions that beams content all over the world. Done a fair bit of work for them, which means if you are in a bar in America or I don't know somewhere else that's quite remote, you can possibly hear me passing judgment on Chelsea and Liverpool and Man U. That doesn't sound too ridiculous. And then by process of, again, coincidence and opportunity, presenters moving on, different presenters stepping away, there was a small gap that opened up and I got asked if I wanted to do it. So I presume they saw something that could possibly work. So I said yes. And then, then after that, it's there's a lot of, if you speak to footballers and managers, which I'm sure you two boys do a lot of the time, there's a lot of analogies and comparisons done with what it is to be a footballer. So you've got to be reliable, you've got to be able to work as part of a team, don't get too above yourself, don't get too big for your boots, realise that you're at the mercy of other people's actions, so make sure that your actions inherently are professional and reliable. And I've hopefully taken that into what we do now, because it's just great fun. Never for 1 minute does it feel like a job. And also, we like to talk about football to a degree in a serious manner. You can't really take yourself too seriously when you are talking about that, and give it due respect with regards to the teams and the players and the managers that you're talking about, which I've always really tried to do.
I think that obviously when footballers retire, there's always a couple options. Like some players going to coaching, some going to management. Was it always an option for you to go into sort of punditry? Did management ever cross your mind, or?
It did, in the sense of how kind of cool it looks when it's going well, which sounds a little bit superficial. But on the flip side, when I was playing at Scunny, and I know Alan Neil really well, he was our boss at the time, and has gone on to do wonderful things with Chris Wilde, and of course was at the World Cup with Wales. But stood watching him get dogs abused from 1,500 people because he's watching over a team that are playing poorly. You're just kind of thinking, why?
Yeah.
What are you getting from that? And that probably strikes or paints me in a bit of a shallow picture, but it can be a thankless task, a completely thankless task. I've loved football, I love everything about it. But when I've seen managers, and I've got ex-teammates that have gone into coaching and seen what it's like, that possibly took that kind of shine off doing that type of thing. Plus, Tom, it was a timing thing. To think you're going to finish playing football at 32 and go, right, I'll go into a coaching job with no coaching badges, anything at all, would be laughable at best, wouldn't it? I mean, I'm sure we've all seen managers and coaches that you're probably saying, has he got a coaching badge? Because these lot are terrible. But inherently, you have to have the qualifications. I didn't have that. I had an opportunity which I'd managed to mine pretty quickly. Producers that I worked with, one or two. There's a fella called David Wade who went on to go and work for DAZN, and a fella called Stevie Rowe who was really good. Were really good with me. Whether that was to do with me being a decent enough presence around what they were doing, possibly. Whether there was a gap to be filled and I was just the next okay thing to chuck in there, I don't know. But hopefully what they saw was something that was what they wanted. Well, it was, because I'm still there, and just approached it in the way. Like I'm sure if you two lads were chucked into it, you'd, without sounding too twee or like a lottery winner, you go around going, "This is a great job." Like, how much do you enjoy you two talking about football? When Ant's here, how much do you all enjoy talking about football? It's not literally the same thing, but it's fundamentally the same thing. Passing opinion, discussing opinion, giving what you think is your take on it, and listening to others and debating that, and then you react off a football match. It sounds like it is simplistic. It's just dressed up sometimes in something a little bit intellectual, which I don't necessarily kind of agree with.
I think what we do on here is like a small scale, like speaking about football to people, but obviously you do it on like a big scale, like what does it feel like? Obviously presenting to millions of people. Like,
it's that pressure.
Yeah,
pressure.
It's the nerves, or
millions on a very rare, very rare one.
Thousands.
Maybe for the playoff final, perhaps. Yeah.
Exactly. Possibly, Nathaniel. You're right. There's nothing nervous in it. Which and again, it's not me trying to like be cool as like, because I'm not remotely that at all. But I've had a lot of help. I've had a lot of feedback, good, bad, and indifferent. Which again, as a footballer, you got that anyway. If you, bad pass, boo; crap shot, boo; good pass, way; maybe the odd goal, way; brilliant. It's very instantaneous. So I always said to them very early on, I said, tell me exactly what you like and what you don't like, and I'll stop doing what you hate, and I'll try and do more of what you like. Said the same thing with presenting, and then after that, it's more about timekeeping. It's more about listening, because we get one of these in your ear, and you've got a director, a producer, you've got a director's assistant who counts you to breaks. This is very boring, and I'm sorry for this. You get a stats team, you get a VT team, which tells you about what you're going to be talking about, which tells you which replays you're looking at. Who else would you get? Anyone else who's in a gallery who wants to chime in. So you could have half a dozen voices talking at the same time. So you've got to be able to try and handle that whilst listening to who you're talking to and making it sound like you're actually listening to what they're saying before you kind of jump in or stop them, or sorry, we've got to get to a break, we've got to get to this. So it's learning those that set you in good stead for what I particularly do. But I also think, again, without dialing it down, because I do understand the platform that it is and how big it is. I totally get it. It's wonderful that there are a lot of eyes on you. But in the end, you just end up talking. So I'm talking to this thing here, which I put my finger on, the cam. It's the same thing. You might have 3 or 4 of those in a studio. You might have 2 or 3 at a stadium. But if you can kind of think, well, I'm just talking to that, really, it stops you thinking there might be somebody or lots of people watching, because it's hard to put. Does that understand without me sounding like I'm trying to dial it down completely? Like to put the two together.
I understand. Yeah,
it's different if you were in. So Nathaniel, you're in university at the moment, and I don't know whether part of what you do involves public speaking or whether you've done the same thing, Tom, where sometimes an auditorium where you can see everybody. That's the difference. There might only be 100 people there, but you think, Christ,
it's worse.
I can see everyone, and everyone's looking back at you now. Whereas if you're doing it to a little camera, it's a different thing. It's almost like talking to one person.
I don't think it crosses your mind, does it, that you're speaking to thousands of people? Whereas when I was presenting at university, I'd be getting real nervous and shaking and stuff, just speaking to 50 people in a room.
Which is a lot.
Yeah, it's quite daunting, especially. Yeah,
of course it is, because you can see every single emotion. You can see the one at the back who's scratching the backside because the ball, or the one at the front who's like,
exactly,
you're making a bit too much eye contact at the front. Can you calm? That's really off-putting.
And also, when I was speaking about like topics I didn't particularly like as well. So like, obviously, with uni, do a wide range of topics. Yeah. And if I was speaking about football, maybe I wouldn't have the nerves, but because I was speaking about, I don't know, I can't really think on the top of it, like linguistics, because I was doing English language, like it's something different, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, it's harder.
And again, maybe that's a self-taught thing. I don't know whether anyone actually said to me, just think of it as that, but that kind of is what it's become. And then after that, it's about, because like I said, if you're in a studio and you've got 3 or 4 different people holding cameras, you make sure that you're on good terms with them, because if you're in front of camera and you've made a lot of enemies off the back of it, then I'm not saying for 1 second anyone to try and leg you up, but you know what I mean, people are more on your side than they are not if you're not going to act like a whopper to them. I think that's hopefully the only difference is, and this might be part of a chat later on, is when you are at grounds, there's a different thing, because obviously there's that interaction. So again, like I said, you get an earpiece, but when you're at a stadium, we get these thicker earpieces, which basically drowns out everything else other than what you want to hear. So you can hear the program coming through your ears, and obviously the people that you're talking to. So whether we're at Wickham on Sunday, for example, which, greatest respect to Wickham, might not be the loudest game by virtue of the fact that it's not the biggest ground, is it? But you get towards kick-off at so we did Sheffield United Burnley. as it's getting towards kickoff at lunchtime, that PA is ridiculous. So by the end of it, you're shouting your head off and you carry away, and then you've got a producer going, right, it's kickoff, pass to the commentary team. You're going, what? But you can't say what because you got your mic's on. So you've got to make sure that you kind of in a vague idea of where you're going. So that sense of dealing with the noise and the kind of that anticipation of where you need to go, that's something that you learn very much on the job, and it's that feedback. Because if I'm not saying for any second that I would be a Sheffield Wednesday midfielder of great note, but if I'm at Sheffield United, there'll be some people that may have watched me play for Wednesday against United. So you get somebody still be on the dugout, just like going like that, or going, and you're going, what? And we had it at the playoff final. So apologies if I've just sworn on that.
Oh, you can swear.
Are you sure? Right, this is going to get really blue in a minute. But there was I've been at Forest, so we'd done the semi-final there, and it was great because they were on the pitch. To a certain extent, they're on the pitch. Obviously, there was some shocking things which, Christ Almighty, were ridiculous. And I was sat with Michael Dawson. Michael Dawson, firm fans' favourite. I'm a bit more removed, and because I've passed judgment on Forest, there's a big, you bloody said that. All right, it's fine. and we'd done the post match at the playoff final. Forest back in the Premier League after over 2 decades. Joyous occasion. I think Joby McAnuff was with us, Michael Heffler, Stuart Pearce. I'm like, Stuart Pearce there, and he's, what are you doing? And I never tire of that type of thing. When you get a proper legend walking on, like I'm sat and stuff with him, and people are singing to him. And in the post match, when they're all kind of filtering out, it went a bit quiet, and I was asking, we'd come back in, and I was talking over a picture or something, and I don't think it got picked up on the mic, but there's a geezer stood about 15 yards away. He went, Prutton, and he went, not bad. I was like, still trying to talk like, and this is a wonderful day for Forest, and cheers, mate, thanks for that, and just so when you get a bit more of that at ground, which I absolutely don't mind. I think it's funny. It's very Partridge, isn't it? Somebody walking past shouting.
Obviously, when they're on commentary, you always get apologies if you're any language here.
You do. And that's the thing that throws me a bit because we had I like that as well for Van there. That sense of that's because do you remember? So we went through the whole of lockdown when we watched it with kind of fake sound, and it was terrible on it, but it was kind of par for the course. And that sense of apologising, I understand it. If you're watching a football match at 1 o'clock in an afternoon with your son or your daughter, and you suddenly hear that, it's like, oh yeah, it's a bit dodgy. But when it happens on a night game, or if you've ever been to a football match. Yeah. As we all have been. I mean, it's an absolute bedrock of the game, isn't it? People screaming that type of stuff, and you're kind of going.
You can't.
I don't know. Do you feel that? Do you feel it's a necessity for us as a broadcaster to say sorry about that? Are you offended if you hear swearing?
I feel sometimes I'm more offended when they do apologise.
Yeah,
that's what I think. But yeah.
Stop apologising.
But I always just think it's funny. It's a nice thing. Maybe I'd complain if they stopped apologising. It's just one of the things to accept watching football.
I think you're right, Nathaniel. I mean, if you took, and this is not trying to give you any inner secrets of how my household is run or how we talk to each other, but there's not many things they haven't heard. So if you take an 11 or 13-year-old to football, they go, like, come on.
Yeah.
We've all heard that, but just do not sing that song ever again anywhere that's not here, because you will get told off, and I'll probably get a proper wrist slap.
Quite right. So speaking of criticism, that's perhaps one of the reasons why you didn't want to be a manager. Ant wants to know why do so many Hull City fans, the word he used was detest you? And this is your chance to clear your name, as Ant says.
It's akin to what I mentioned about the Forest thing. So there was Ian Holloway was when he was a pundit with us, who was wonderful company, Ollie, and then he decided to go back into the madhouse and be a manager again. He used to have to predict games, and he had to predict. They asked him, and they've never done it since because he wasn't too happy about it. So before this ball had even been kicked, they asked him to predict the final championship table. And by virtue of predicting that, there's 3 teams that'll get relegated. There's 3 that'll go up. So
difficult as well. It's
And
not like the Premier League.
No, and he's not Nostradamus, you know what I mean? He's not a magician. He doesn't know what's going to happen. So he's going, well, this is what I think. And some took umbrage to it and some didn't. He left and they said, do you want to talk about predicting these games? So I was like, yeah, fine. And so on a weekly or game-by-game basis, these lot might win. I've looked at the form guide. This could happen. And by virtue of watching the Championship, it more often than not bites you on the arse when it comes to actually kind of predicting stuff. So there was an element of... Bizarrely, there was a Coventry City fan I bumped into as well. Like, why do you hate us? And I was like, you reading way too much into this. Like, hate requires a proper deep well of emotion and feeling. Yeah. There's none of that there. The same about predicting Forest game. The same about Hull City games. There was nothing in other than looking at what I thought was particularly the way the season was sat, that you predict a certain result. And it's akin to, I don't know, saying somebody's kid's ugly or slapping a kid across the head or, oh, that baby's, you know what I mean, that's a dodgy looking baby. It offends because it's yours. It's your baby. Hull City is your baby. And I totally get that. I also think that any games that we've done, and it's a bit different now because of obviously being the person that's not necessarily passing judgment, but is talking about the game and asking questions about the game. Unless I'm misremembering, again, I apologise for misremembering a lot of things. It's a great get-out clause, especially when you're in court. There was nothing unduly negative in the way that I said. It's funny when Ant had got in touch with me on Twitter to come on here. And then there was a couple of people that had chimed in with regards to my, and this goes back to the ownership. It goes back to the people that have run or did run Hull City for the best part, well, over 10 years, wasn't it? And then with Achunko coming in, there was a game that we did, and I'd come out of the ground. So it was City against Sheffield United, and I come out of the ground. And there's a geezer, and I don't know whether it's his missus, but they're always there when I do City games. Lovely people, always have a quick chat. And hi Dave, you're right? Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. And chatting about the game, I can't remember what the score was. And then he said, "Remember though, it's City, not Tigers." I'm like, "What?" And he went, "Yeah, quality." And, yeah, but like, it's Hull City, not Hull Tigers. And I kind of walked away thinking, is he odd, or did I mishear what he just said then? And then there's a journo that I know, Baz, who works in the area, Baz Cooper, who's really good.
Yeah, Baz Cooper.
Really
We've had him on the podcast twice, I think.
He's very good. He's very good. I've got a lot of time for Baz. And he said, "Oh, you've pissed a lot of people off." And I was like, "What?" I said, "What do you mean?" "Well, you know they're not called Hull Tigers." I said, "Yes, by virtue of knowing Hull City, I know they're not called Hull Tigers. I know that when the Alarms had mooted that, it was absolutely blown to pieces, wasn't it?" And then it kind of, and I think that Saturday night I'd had a couple of glasses. So right, Baz, let's have a chat on Monday, and I'll tell you exactly what I think. And blah blah blah. Then obviously it dies down because then you realise that life's too short, and you sound pathetic by trying to fight a corner that's very small. And then it'd come up in this chat because what I'd said was, and again, I think I've said it on somewhere else, and I apologise if I'm boring anyone. That spiel that you do, so we all know what football looks like on TV. Opener comes on, blah blah blah. They've done great. They've been crap. He scores goals. He doesn't score goals. Here's a team. Here's the team. You come into envision of someone holding a microphone. Going, "Welcome to Hull City," and I said something along the lines of, "Welcome to Hull, Tigers versus Blades." So basically, if I was writing it down, it would be "Welcome to Hull, comma, Tigers versus Blades."
The Tigers,
whatever was off the back
Blades, yeah,
exactly. So whatever was off the back of that, and maybe it's more to do with my projection as a presenter. I mangled whatever I said, which made it sound like one long word. But again, when Ant had given me a shout, and there was a couple on Twitter saying, "Well, what did you mean? Did you mean?" Well, no, I didn't mean that at all. And I was trying to work out what would be a suitable analogy to try and get the point across of the very small battle that I was fighting. It would be akin to me saying, "Welcome to Hull Tigers versus Sheffield Blades. My name's Gary Lineker. We're at the Betfred 4-6-10 Stadium on the east bank. The centre that was.
Yeah, I think we've lost David again, but that was a very good analogy. I understood what he meant there, because he's certainly not Gary Lineker. Otherwise, we'd be very distantly related, because I'm extremely distantly related to Gary Lineker, sort of. That's a factor I'm just going to throw in now. Again, if anyone is listening, please do send in your questions for David when he's back. I don't know if he's going to be back anytime soon, but what did you think of all of that? And have you forgiven him for his mistake? Oh, he's back.
He's back now. He's back.
It'd be great if I'd have gone off and you just absolutely sandbagged me when I'd gone off. So good. I'm glad he's gone. He's X, Y, and Z. So
we wouldn't dare.
I'm in the area of protesting too much now, aren't I? And thinking about it too much. But that's the thing, because it's what you need to realise as well. Like I said, when we're doing what we do, because of the perception in certain quarters of what Sky Sports is, you have to absolutely make sure that you are doing each and every club when you're there the proper service. You know what I mean? If you know what I mean, if Bristol City hate being called Bristol, don't they? I mean, don't call them Bristol. It's either City or Bristol City.
That's why I call them Bristol.
Exactly. The amount of times I've been sat on with people that go, "And Notts Forest," and you're going, "Come on, you know it's not Notts Forest. You know it's not Notts Forest."
I like doing that one as well.
Yeah. Nathaniel, I think you've got passive
the
aggression down to an absolute team, mate, haven't you?
I think the worst one by far is when people call Sheffield United Sheffield. You know, like you know what I mean?
Because there's two of them,
isn't there?
No one would ever say Manchester.
No, they wouldn't, because it sounds crazy. And like I said, there'd be nothing. Yeah, there's no. Whenever I've seen City do well, it's been great. When you look at the travails both on and off the pitch that they've had to kind of work through, I think it goes back to what you said, Tom. Given the fact of geographically where it is, it's good at fighting its own corner, isn't it? It's really good at fighting its own corner, because that's what they are. It's a corner which is ours geographically, logistically, and in a footballing sense. And we will take on all comers. And if for 1 second you think that they like being called Hull Tigers, we will come out swinging at you, which is absolutely fair enough. I totally get it.
That's exactly what happened when obviously Adams tried to change our name, but there we go.
That and the membership scheme as well, which the family, Assam in particular. I mean, he's done some wonderful things for that particular part of the country. So I mean, staggeringly philanthropic kind of
investment into the whole university and
the NHS trust. It's staggering, and that money's probably saved lives. That money's changed people's lives. That money's helped people beyond all recognition. So you're kind of looking at it going, because I think there was a bit of a consensus of people looking at Hull City at that time, and you two might be able to give me a bit more insight than this. It was that typical foreign owners, and you're going, well, I mean, by virtue of geography, yes, but this is a man that studied at university here decades ago, made a home here decades ago, and was part of the fibre of that. Whether his son goes on to kind of unendear himself to people by virtue of saying, right, it's going to be this, and if you don't like it, do one. We're going to crack on with this. It's going to be the name change. It's going to be a different ticketing system, which just totally kind of alienated people from what I saw and read and heard. That's a different debate entirely, but it did at the start. It feels like there was a lot of good things that happened under, particularly the old man. I thought.
I think the membership scheme, it was a great idea because no other club did it, but the way it was executed was wrong because they took out concessions. Obviously, young fans and the elderly were priced out. So,
which
like a child as young as 6 was paying the same amount of money as an adult. So obviously we lost a generation of fans, but we knew the membership scheme was a good idea because Adrian's kept it now in place. Yeah. So we still pay out. Obviously, I've got a membership for Hull City, so I still pay monthly. Obviously, so does other people that are going. But they're also bringing an option where you can pay like in a lump sum. So you've got the best of both worlds. So.
I mean,
it shows that it was a good idea. It was just not executed right by the Allens.
Yeah, I mean, there's many things in history that have been good ideas, but been executed completely wrongly. The girls there shrieking. It's 1st of December, and every Christmas, all the Christmas trees are up in our street. Everyone's got bonkers. But with Atchen and how he's gone about, I mean, the fact it's little things, isn't it? He seems like a very charismatic fella. I've read there's a bunch of City fans there that have been over in Antalya that have been flown there and sorted out, and he's looked after them. And it just sounds...
I entered that, but didn't get the call.
Oh, was it on a kind of ballot type raffle type thing?
They're saying it's a random draw. Yeah. So people picked it random. Where obviously some City fans on Twitter are arguing that some people were selected. You know, like you do, but you know, it's one of them. Obviously, 300 fans have had the opportunity to go out there. I'm happy for them to do so. I'm not jealous or anything, you know. But it's a great opportunity. Like, it's the fact that not many owners in world football would do that for the fans. So I think it's a unique way to, you know, obviously show that you care about the football club and show you care about the supporters.
We can all get cynical and say it's good PR, but I'm sure he's not bothered. He runs it in the way that he wants. It's funny because I texted Liam about 3 hours ago just to have a quick catch up, and he said definitely ring me. I should have shown you the text back, but he's gone now because it's a WhatsApp. I think he does those disappearing WhatsApps, the dodgy stuff. But he said hi mate, I'm in Turkey. Give us a call at 7. So I said okay. Then rung him at 7. Mate, so sorry, I got pulled into a meeting. Let me know if you need anything. So I'm obviously going to text back and say, no, mate, I'm done. It'd be great if that showed his number as well, because then you could all text him. It doesn't. It just says Liam Racine, you know, which is rubbish.
We'll have to get him on the podcast for
us. What's your thoughts? Happy that he's back in a management capacity?
Yeah, I was happy with the appointment.
I'm relatively happy.
Yeah.
But, you know, he just hasn't got much experience as a manager. But, I mean, the way he comes across in interviews is so great. Yeah. And, you know, he's got a month to you know, implement his philosophy, which will hopefully be very beneficial to us. But hopefully the fans will give him a lot more time because of his status as a player as well.
He's a big he wants to play football the right way.
Yeah. I think the thing is with Rossini compared to Shota, he wants to play football the right way. So we've had a bit. You've seen in our opening 3 games that we've had problems playing the ball out from the back because we don't necessarily have the right defenders to do so. But I had an idea that he's sticking with that style, and he's come out in an interview and said that, look, if my players make mistakes, that's on me because I'm telling them to play this way. And I think you have to sort of instill that philosophy into a club for quite a while for it to sort of. You saw Pep Guardiola at Man City. It took them a while to sort of get used to that. So I think we were it's just about giving him time. But I think Adrian himself knows that that's the nature of the business now, that he has to give this manager time because he was the one that it took him a while to choose Rossini. I think it was
it did take a while, didn't
it? Probably 6 weeks to a month for us to get a new manager. Obviously, Dawson was an interim manager, but I'm glad he stayed at the club. So I think it's just about biding out time and, you know, hopefully he's the man to sort of get us back up the table.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what Russell Martin's done at Swansea, they do exactly the same thing, and he's been there a while now. And I remember watching the first few games. We've done them against Sheffield United, which would have been start of last season, and it was. I mean, I've no connection whatsoever to Swansea, but even I was kind of going, oh my God, he passing it there. No, don't give it him there. And they were taking the ball. And if there was a mistake, Russell is number 2. No, well done, lads. Keep going. Liam will be the same as that. Liam will be the one that will say that it's his responsibility, as you were saying, Tom, that if things go wrong, if mistakes are made, if a misplaced pass is given out on the edge of the 18-yard box, then he's asked them to do it. He wants them to be brave on the board, doesn't he? Give 100%. Yeah. All footballing fundamentals that will last to the end of time. I'll be intrigued, and again, maybe you two can sound me a kind of relevant note on this. Is the whole City fan base happy and patient enough to see this type of stuff? Are they gonna? There's not, because I can tell you from a playing point of view. Boos are tough to take. A collective sigh of disappointment can absolutely cut you in half. You know that. You know when you get that the groan of 15,000 people all at the same time. They've got to be brave to do that, and I think the fans have got to be brave to get on board with it.
I think what we've seen already is I'm in a Hull City fans forum, And you've seen already, look, we can't play out from the back. Oh, what's his style from a senior? Oh, look, it's giving me. I mean, Nathaniel put out a tweet in the Cardiff game about, oh, I'm too nervous watching this.
It's like watching a horror film.
Right again.
Yeah. But
It's hiding behind the sofa.
I think it's just, but I think everyone likes football played the right way, played out from the back, and you can't implement a style if you just. You go 1 or 2 games, you lose 2, and then you go back to just hooping up the field. I think it's just about that biding on time, and I think once we get the right players in, I think Rossini can work wonders with the squad because we've already got some quality players, but just there.
What's the? Because I was reading about. It was more general, wasn't he, about what he was after in January, not necessarily who he was after. What do you look at in that team and think? I mean, the best thing for any team in January would be to go get us another defender, get us another midfielder or a winger and a centre forward. Inherently, that doesn't necessarily happen, does it? It's also reflective of how much is there to be able to spend. And he's got to get players out. I think he's taken something like 30 players over there, which is a massive squad of players to take.
Quite a few
which is
youth players,
staggering, really.
Yeah. We've got a lot of players there.
So who are they after then? Where does he need to go in January then?
4 defenders, I'd say. 4 defenders. 4? Or at least, our defence has been so bad.
But Cyrus Christie stays at right back.
Yeah.
Jacob Greaves.
Yes.
But I think another centre-back at the very minimum. We very much need a centre-back.
Right-sided centre-back, that's... We have to get one. Figueiredo has been, dodgy at best.
But he was touching at Forest, though, wasn't he? Same player. It was one of those where I'm intrigued when you get a player such as that, and again, not casting aspersions on him, where you kind of go, it comes into your team, and you kind of think, well, is it one where you just kind of go, well, it's another body, great. It's not the same with Seri. When I saw Seri in fits and starts at Fulham, there's a good player in there. But would it be fair to say that he's not? Did a Hull City fan expect him to come in and carry the team and say, "Look, this is the way I'm going to play. I'm going to lead you forward"? Because I've not seen it as yet.
I think when you got a player like Seri, you've got to build a team around him. And currently, we don't have the squad of players that Seri can flourish with because we don't necessarily have the quality in our areas of the field. I think we definitely need an anchor man in midfield so that can release Seri and sort of give him that freedom. Because that's when I think he plays at his best. If he plays in a midfield 2 way, he has to play deep and protects the back line. He's not as good. But if you have someone in there strong, physical, we don't have a physically strong midfielder really that can just sort of command it, sort of captain-like player. I think Jacob Greaves is all the credentials to be our future captain. But I think we definitely need a holder midfielder and a centre back. They're the 2 areas.
Given Greaves and his kind of the day job element of where he plays, could you see him as that holding midfielder?
Well, he's quick enough. He's good enough on the ball, but I think he's, we've seen him at left back and he's done very well there. But I think centre back
go from centre back to
centre
backs. But
it's just possible to move.
I mean, because fundamentally, if he's good on the ball, and when I say good on the ball, it doesn't have to be John Terry or Rio Ferdinand. If he can take a ball and be responsible with a football, then his ability to get over the grass, like Nathaniel's saying, with that turn of pace, it only takes a manager to see him in a slightly different way and bed him in a different way. And then, as you were saying, Tom, it's who you put around him. It's not necessarily just what he does on his own. Yeah. It's how he operates with perhaps him holding with 2 in front. If you've got a Seri that can go and get released and go and express himself. I mean, again, Ryan Woods is another good player that's tidy enough on the ball. I mean, does he, given his experience, given his footballing background, does he do enough for you guys in that position, given the talents that he's got?
He's had some good matches, I think. Rotherham, I think obviously every player on that pitch played well on that day, but him and Seri struck up a good partnership before Rossini came in. Yeah. I think Andy Dawson, obviously like Woods, obviously he's tidy on the ball. He recycles it well. But I think him and Seri are quite similar. I think if you play him as a midfield 2, you can get overpowered. So I think it's, what Ant says there, I think it's right that with Smallwood gone, we've not, although he's not the best sort of ability-wise, we've not replaced his sort of presence in midfield.
Yeah, that sort of player, definitely.
Who's the last one that was there that was that type of player then for you? Surely not going all the way back to Jake, are you? Because I mean that's a hefty jump, isn't it, with regards to someone that was in that position.
We've had sort of trying to think. We had obviously Marcus Henriksen who did that job quite well.
Kevin Stewart, he wasn't that great.
Irvan was more
more attacking, more box to box.
He was someone that won the ball back in. But yeah, apart from obviously Smallwood's was with us from the League One season.
Yeah.
And then obviously we saw them in the summer, but before that it was like Henriksen, sort of Stewart, Irvan. Not really had that sort of player really. But for a while.
No, it's intriguing given potentially as well what City have done coming out of the champ, getting back into the champ, and how, because I know that the owner said about playing a certain style, but he needed to you need that player in there, whether it's by virtue of the personality of the player or the physical aspects of the player. I think given what Hull City need to do in these seasons back in the champ, i.e. consolidate, then look to move forward, that type of player seems to me to be absolutely imperative, and I'm surprised there's not been more of a focus on that. Maybe if bloody Rossini had answered his phone, I could have asked him this, but he's probably keeping his cards very close to his chest. But you'd like to think that somebody like that would be ideal to be at the base of that midfield to shore them up, basically.
Yeah, because we see, like, obviously in the modern game, a lot of teams do play 4-3-3. Or 4-2-3-1. There's also a lot of teams that play 3 at the back as well, and that's an effective formation in the Championship, as we've seen. Like Forest have done well with it. Obviously, went up.
Yes,
and I think a lot of the top teams in the Championship, they do play out from the back as well. So I think that's the philosophy that we're trying to instill. Well, Rossini is trying to instill, and I think it's one that, like I said before, if we get the right players, it's one that can take us forward. Just about having the right sort of personnel. Yeah.
Chemistry like this, it's all chemistry.
Yeah, I think that's one of the main things that we've struggled with so many new players. But
was it 16 in the summer? I mean,
it was around
good
there.
luck betting
16,
them.
Yeah. And then about 5 of them came injured as well, so we didn't even.
Brilliant.
So all of them have been injured since.
We've got
Salah. Go on.
We signed Salah from Arsenal. Salah Ouladmiand. We signed Adama Traore, who was injured. Trying to think who else has been that many. Who else did we sign that was injured as well?
Well, Cynic came injured immediately.
Yeah, Cynic was injured, yeah.
Tete got injured pretty quickly.
Is there, because
Ali
the owner, there's the owner and there's a double-handed way of looking at this, isn't there? And Liam's kind of said as well, he's got a big say in it. But I think any manager now that goes into a football club, regardless of whether they've got recent history or past history, like Liam's got with City, they've got to work in a structure, haven't they? And if the owner wants to bring in what he believes to be tried and trusted from a different league, a different country, then, like I said, not knowing, and this is me second guessing possibly the position that Liam finds himself in, that it would be rare that a manager of a club in the Championship had complete autonomy over who came in and out. I would be very surprised because the clubs don't work like that anymore, do they? They say, well, look, he's the man who owns it. He's the man who's going to give you the money. This is a committee that decides who's coming in or offers you players. Yeah. And I think that would be the case as well. So I'd be intrigued. I'd be really intrigued. I hope he gets as much of a swing at it as he deserves, Liam, because you can't bring a manager in and say, well, we want you to do this, but then we're just going to give you this type of player, because then he's probably thinking, well, my hands are already tied now because I need to do this and I want to play like this, but you give me these types of players. I'll be intrigued to see how that works out.
Yeah, it'll certainly be interesting.
Yeah. One other thing I want to talk about is your podcast with Neil Warnock, who's become somewhat of a meme now, especially his videos at managing Sheffield United. The podcast is named after one of those videos, Die for 3 points. So what's that like, working with one of the biggest characters in the game?
It's good. He's great fun. I've done a few games with him as kind of presenter and pundit and all that type of stuff, and he's been wonderful company. He's very sharp. He's very funny. I played against his teams as well, which were always an experience. And the man that I've come to know and chat to, I know divides opinion. I absolutely get it. I do get that. I understand why. But that kind of transformation that goes on a touchline is slightly different in person. Obviously, there's a softer side to him. I think it was over 40 years as a manager. Whether he still wants to go back in, I don't know. I mean, don't ask me. He could walk into a job tomorrow.
It's his birthday today, I think.
I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, 74,
I think you're right. So, 74. And he's got great stories. I mean, I've spoken to players that have ex-teammates of mine that have played for him and just had an absolute ball. Just love playing. And he sounds like the type of manager that I would have really loved to have played for. But in these bits that we're talking about, we try and we have a little chat about football. We've done a bit about the World Cup. We'll bring guests in. We had Simon Jordan on, who was his chairman at Crystal Palace, which was a fascinating chat. Well, I say fascinating chat. I basically sat and watched these two talk to each other or at each other, and then said thanks for listening.
Simon Jordan's very opinionated, and so I can imagine
he is. He is, and the thing is, he gets it. I mean, if you're on a show on Talk Sport for 3 hours, you can't just agree with each other and go, yeah, you're right. I don't really think of anything about that. They know exactly what they're doing.
It's great to demand an opinion. That's why he's on there.
Exactly. And Jim White, I think, is an unbelievable broadcaster and another very, very lovely fella. But we've got other guests lined up, and it's just been really good fun. I got approached to do it via a mutual acquaintance of ours, which when you are part freelance in this broadcasting world, you listen to it. You go, yeah, that sounds good to me. Let's crack on. And it's been great fun so far. He seems to enjoy it.
I had a quick look. I saw you on Jackmate on there while I watched his Happy Hour podcast. What was he like on there?
He was great because I'd listened to a fair few of his, because there's different strands of podcasts in there, of course. There's ones that have got to have an overall meaning, and they've got to knit it together, and it's got to be this, and it's got to be quite earnest, and then Jackmates. Can you tell me what it's about?
No, you can't.
Nothing.
It's such varied guests on there.
Bizarre, isn't it? Bizarre. And I looked at, and you do your due diligence without trying to sound like a really old man going, so what's this podcasting and influencer thing like? And it was, you look at like the collective engagement, and it's in the hundreds of millions, and you think this is crazy. And it's there. It's in the title, isn't it? Happy Hour. It's there to just while away an hour's worth of chat. And we had him on, and it was great to watch Neil just kind of, and I think even by the end of it, Neil was like, could you just remind us again, like, what do you do? Which I thought was really funny. So we hopefully, as it progresses, fingers crossed, that we can bring, I don't know, different people together that perhaps Neil might not ever come across in another walk of life. So no, it's good fun. It's good fun. And it's, he's, I think we've all seen him on a touchline. We've all seen him.
Yeah.
I tell you what he's got as well, which is it's actually quite impressive. Is an absolute photographic memory of both instance and name of referees that have wronged him. My God! And that's for him. He did this back then, and he did that, and I'm going, that's amazing how you remembered that.
Yeah.
But
I presume he doesn't like the referees at that Cardiff Chelsea game. I think that was perhaps the most iconic of him with the pose and everything. That was I was watching that, and it was
staggering. And then that debate comes in about, well, if we'd have had VAR back then, which obviously is completely moot and totally hypothetical.
Cardiff could have been relegated long before, potentially.
Yeah, I love that, Nathaniel. You're absolutely right. Instead of it going all the way then. I think, and it's the fellow that I've spoken to. There's a softer side to him. I'm not his PR manager by any stretch of imagination, and I'm sure that his professional future doesn't live and die on a podcast that involved me. But I think he seems to enjoy it. He's not told me to bugger off yet, so we crack on.
Yeah, it's quite. I didn't imagine like Neil Warnock knew what a podcast was until he did one. To be honest, it seems like sort of blurred, didn't like.
I think he would have definitely. He's definitely been sold on it. I think it's good that he's there, and we like it all. Trying to work out logistics. We've done several together when we've been in London at the same time, and I think for that type of thing, that it helps to build rapport, absolutely. But we sent a team down there to set him up, and he lives in Cornwall. I mean, he's literally miles away.
Yeah.
With the type of Wi-Fi or internet connection that was last seen in the late 90s, I think.
Yeah.
There's been a couple of instances like, so we're doing this, and he'd be like tapping away, like, and
I can imagine
it's just funny. And obviously, and you're there trying to not explain it to him in a way that's going to really get on his nerves. Like, I know what I'm doing, I can do it.
Yeah, like condescending sort of, like if you sort of explain it like he's an old man.
Exactly.
Probably like that, would he?
No. Oh, no, not at all, not at all. But like I said, everything I've heard from players that have played for him has just been a complete joy. Never a dull moment. That's what he's really loved over the course of 4 decades worth, is the interaction with the players, whether it's former players like Kevin Blackwell and Ronnie Jepson that are very much on his staff whenever he goes into a football club. He did a live tour, which I had the pleasure of watching. And I was going to work on a couple of them, but I had other work come up which I had to take precedent. And it was he was talking about Emiliano Sala, and obviously the horrific kind of circumstances that they all found themselves in with him coming over to sign for Cardiff, and bits like that where you can really see the kind of the humanity in a person, and dealing with that and moving through that and leading the club, leading Borough through COVID and trying to keep everyone's spirits up and all these. I mean, it'd be nice to have precedented times, wouldn't it? We seem to be just going through unprecedented time after unprecedented time, and coming out the back of that and always understanding fundamentally what the important bits were, the fans, the players, and the interaction between those kind of different entities and what makes a club what it is. And I think he properly got it. And as much as we've all probably seen him go hell for leather on a touchline, and he's probably been booed out of stadiums, I still think across the board, whether it begrudgingly or not, maybe that's the wrong word, that if maybe not so now, maybe 5 years ago, if the owner had come out and said, we've got a new manager, who is it? It's Neil Warnock. There'd have been an element that would have gone, but a lot of them would have gone, you know what? Yeah, we're going to might give it a go here, with regards to how we're going to go about it.
I think it's like when he's your manager, you love him, but when you're like an opposition fan, you dislike him because of the way he is. But I think I've always liked him as a character. I wish he was I wish he managed City at some point, but obviously it's never happened. But
I think he would, because it is about identity as well. He's a very proud Yorkshireman. He's a very proud son of Sheffield. But given, as we've said, and we're all slightly biased given by virtue of the fact of where we're all from, there's a uniqueness to that part of the country, that part of our little bit that sticks out into the sea that we're all very, very proud about. And you can never get away from it. If you run as far as Huddersfield, like you've done, or stayed pretty local, Tom, like you've done, it never leaves you, does it?
No, it doesn't. You always end up coming back. Like, you can go away for a long time. Exactly.
Yeah, well, I didn't necessarily want to date this podcast, but you've already said it's Neil Warnock's birthday today, so
we definitely know what it is.
Failed. So I'd be remiss, especially as we've got the background. So I'll ask you the big question: is football coming home?
I sincerely hope so. I think from what we've seen so far, they've been perfunctory. They were very boring against the USA. I can't think the centre of Hull was bouncing off the back of that, was it? Bloody hell.
Have you both seen the results tonight?
No.
So I was watching the first half. Spain were winning 1-0.
Right, okay.
Spain winning 1-0 first half. Germany winning 1-0 at half time. And now we've had... So now Japan have beaten Spain 2-1 and Germany have won 4-2 against Costa Rica. Yeah. And Costa Rica were winning 2-1 at one point in that game as well.
But they came from behind, didn't they, Germany?
Germany are out, Germany are out. Despite winning 4-2, So
I'm
not too displeased about that, I must say. Back-to-back World Cups now.
I'm surprised. I'm not I mean, it's as much as we all. I mean, everyone was looking at Brazil and possibly Argentina, weren't they, with that kind of heart-shaped box for England put in there as well. But my God, I mean, Martinez has gone as well, hasn't he? He says his contract's done because the World Cup's done. He's walked off.
Belgium.
So, in answer to your question, Nathaniel, why shouldn't he come home when it's all gone to whatever?
Well, we've got to win the games first. We've got Senegal soon, but I think it's coming.
By virtue of knockout football, we've got to win the games before we get to the final.
Michael Owen there. Michael Owen moment.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, we can't get ahead of ourselves, but we will win them.
Exactly.
When we win all the games, it'll come home.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well,
see, I told you it's very straightforward. Just say what you think. As long as you say it in a charming way, people don't mind.
Does anyone have anything to add? Otherwise, I'll do my very complex outro.
No, I think that's everything, to be fair.
Okay.
I've really enjoyed it, lads. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been great fun. I'm sorry that Liam blanked me. See, as soon as he left Sky Sports, he forgot. I mean, I was in the dust. But I think, like I said, I've watched a lot of these and listened to a lot of these, and I think what you do is cracking. And as I said, award worthy, as I read in Dispatches. Exactly. So well done for that.
Well, I forgot to mention that, so thanks for doing my job for me. But yeah, we are. I'll do the award-winning outro. Thank you very much for coming on, David Prutton of Sky Sports and former professional footballer of almost 50 games, as I wrote down. And thanks for coming on, Tom. Lots of great questions. So hopefully we'll be back very soon to talk about England, Hull's fantastic draw with Trabzonspor in the friendly match, and looking ahead to the Senegal game. So we'll probably be back tomorrow night, the day after Neil Warnock's birthday. So thanks very much again. Hopefully everyone's enjoyed, and we'll see you again very soon.